right now got some really exciting keynote coming up. The cycles of disruptive innovation, how astrological cycles influence global transformation. Our next keynote speaker is a leading Vedic astrology researcher and founder of Prajna Jyotisha Institute. Anand Abhiga's predictions from the COVID-19 pandemic to major geopolitical events have captivated millions. Welcome the man who reads cosmic rhythms shaping our world, Abhiga Anand, for the next keynote. Round of applause, please.
Jai Shri Krishna, Namaste and Ni Hao. I welcome you all to this wonderful place, the Asia Blockchain Summit, and which better place than Taipei to hold such a beautiful event. So I thank the organizers for having me here today, and I am very excited to share with you all certain insights about the future of the world by looking at the past. So I've been into Vedic astrology since I was around 11 years old, and I've always been very curious about how the world functions and how major events happen across the world. So today I'm going to present a few anecdotes, a few global experiences, and a few important events that have happened throughout the world in the last 1,000 years and compare that to the future of the world. So today we're going to understand astrological cycles, and I'm going to explain why I believe that the celestial positions of planets impact the Earth. This might sound to some people a little bit confusing, and of course when we come from a scientific and rational background, it's a bit difficult to fathom that astrological cycles can somehow impact human situations. But we'll go through it today, and with an open mind we can probably explore some major truths about this world. So first of all, there are a lot of it's just locked the screen. So first of all, we have, say, the great conjunctions. We have a very important astrological cycle. It's known as the Great Conjunction. A lot of people might have heard of this, but for those of you who haven't heard of this, the most important astrological cycle is when the slowest planets and the largest planets of the solar system that are visible to humans are Jupiter and Saturn. So when Jupiter and Saturn come very close to each other, something very special happens in the world. Either we have a major innovation or an invention, a major technology that comes about, or a major ideology that takes over the world, as I'm going to show you very soon. So I somehow discovered this kind of a cyclicity in 2019 when I was randomly looking at the movement of planets. I just felt that something very important and something world-changing is going to happen in 2020. So that evening, in August 2019, I was looking at the planetary positions in my book as well as in my software, and I just realized that something that has never happened in the last 400 years was about to happen. Jupiter and Saturn were coming close to each other, very, very close. And the last time this had happened was in 1206, 1345, and 1603. So something very special was supposed to happen in 2020. So I made a video on YouTube, and I talked about it, saying there's going to be severe danger to the world in 2020, saying that either there could be a world war or there could be a major disease that could kill millions of people. So this was my, my prediction for 2020. And the reason behind this was an analysis of the global cycle. So let's get into it straight away and see how global cycles can impact human innovation. So we're only going to focus on a few things today because of limited time. Astrology, especially Vedic astrology, is a very deep science, and there is 5,000 years worth of research and history with this science. So today we're only exploring one simple thing, and that is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn and how it relates to human events. And I'm sure by the end of this presentation, most of us here will have an idea of the impact of celestial events. So first of all, we need to understand that these conjunctions happen only once in 20 years, because Jupiter takes 12 years to move around the sun, and complete a revolution around the zodiac, and Saturn takes 30 years. So they come together every 20 years. Sometimes it's close, sometimes it's far. The closer it is, the more stronger the impact, and the farther it is, the weaker or slower the impact overall. So in 2020, we had the closest great conjunction for over 800 years, and that is what made it so special. We had never seen the whole world locking itself up. We had never seen the economy coming down heavily in a short period of time, and we had never seen the proliferation of technologies as much as we see today. And that is the speciality of 2020. So first of all, I would like to present 1206, the previous closest great conjunction. While most of us are aware that India was the largest, Bharat was the largest economy in the world around 1,000 years back, it represented 33% of the global GDP. Today, it represents very less compared to what it was earlier. But there was one time when Bharata represented 33% of the global economy and China about 20%. And together, India and China, or East Asia, represented 50% of the global economy. Just imagine the size of that, 50% of the global economy. What led to the sudden downfall of this megalith of an economy? It was simply the change in cycles, as I believe, but you will see it very soon. 1206 was when we had a great conjunction. The Mongols invaded half of the existent civilization at that time from one stretch of the globe to the other stretch of the globe. And what followed was brutal genocide, and millions of people passed away, and many things happened, many socio-economic changes came into being, and many economic structures came into being, new ideologies came into being, and everything changed. And when was this? 1206, exactly. 1206 was the Great Conjunction, and 1206 was when Genghis Khan was announced as the leader of the world by his tribe, and he began the invasion of the world. So that cannot be a coincidence, but just in case you think that's a one-off event, let's go to the next slide, and you'll see something more special happening. So then we have 1345, the Black Death in Europe. 1347 was when the Black Death began, and 1345 we had another monumental great conjunction that took place. Within 2 years, we had one of the worst pandemics that humans have ever experienced, with 30 to 60% of the European population being wiped out. Now that's something very, very astonishing, right? 1345 was another very important great conjunction, and within 2 years we have a great disease. Now going to the next slide, as you can see, the year 1603, another very close great conjunction, after which we had 1623, which was another very close great conjunction. 1603, 1602, we saw the invention of the stock market. So you can just see how important these cycles are. We saw the invention of the most important things that fuels our capital markets and innovation today, and that's the stock market. It was invented, or it was, even if you say it was invented a few years back, that was the year when the first exchange opened in 1602 in Amsterdam. So, of course, we had organized slave trade, and we also had the invention of sugar, which caused so much misery in the world till now, both which happened around 1602. And alongside, this was a changing moment for the colonial powers in Europe, which were able to conquer different parts of the world through different methods, and that also involved a lot of harm to society. So every time a great conjunction happens, we have two things that happen. One, there is a great invention, there is a new system of thought, there is a new ideology that springs, and two, there is a negative counterculture or a counter-revolution that comes up, which negatively transforms the world to an extent. So we have two different divergent things that happen at the same time when a great conjunction comes into being, and often very close to the conjunction. Now I'm going to talk about another year, 1921, without offering any of my political opinions. I'm just going to explain what happened in 1921. 1921, for most of you who have gone through the history books, was a very significant year. We saw the Russian Revolution just culminating, and we saw the Soviet Union being born in 1922, just a year after another very close great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. In 1921, the Communist Party of China was also born, and a new revolution, a new ideology, and a new political system was born. A counter-revolution, a counter-culture was also born in the same time frame. Also, for those of you who remember, this was a turning point in the economy of the world. We had the beginning of a great bubble in the United States as well, which happened. This might be a little bit boring, the historical anecdotes, but the reason why I'm mentioning this is to bring to the table the fact that astrological conjunctions impact society significantly, and that's how I also predicted 2020 being a very transforming year. Now going to the next slide, we're just going to look at technology now, coming to the next point. Because if I go into the entire history of human beings, as well as the situations that we have all gone through in society, it is going to take at least a 3-hour presentation. But to fit everything in 20 minutes, I'm just going to show you the proliferation of technology from 1940 approximately. For example, 1940s, we had the automobile revolution that took off out of nowhere, just very, very quickly. We also had the World War that took place. That was another very important Great Conjunction. Within 2 years of the Great Conjunction, we had a World War, and that World War was the deadliest so far, and very problematic situation. At the same time, we had invention that came up, a lot of new technologies that came up. Of course, we can go into the details of those technologies, but again, we had the automobile revolution, as I mentioned, 1960. We had the the semiconductor revolution that began, and the 1980s, we had internet that proliferated very, very quickly. And in the 2000s, we had the advent of the Web 2.0, as we call it today. 2020, we had Web 3 that proliferated. Now, some of you might be thinking the inventions were made earlier. Yes, the inventions could have been made earlier, but this was the stage wherein the valuation of these technologies were, rapid, and the adoption of them also increased rapidly, and it was palpable, as we can see today. After 2020, the valuations in artificial intelligence and the valuations of all, companies related to artificial intelligence or blockchain or Web 3.0, as we call it today, all proliferated so quickly in just a span of 3 to 4 years. And all of this after a great conjunction. So we can see these cycles and what is happening after them, but for the scientific mind and the rational mind, there might still be an idea of saying, how could 2 planets somewhere in the sky impact human mind and technology on Earth? So this is a very valid point. Astrology, Vedic astrology holds a hypothesis that celestial objects in the skies can and do impact human thought, human action, and in fact, the whole situation of the Earth, including geology, which is an entire different subject, but coming to human minds, yes, it does. The moon's movements also impact the human mind. Otherwise, I couldn't have predicted several important events till date, including the Israel-Hamas war, etc. So now, we need to understand the current and the future technological landscape. This is very important because we are at a time frame in the world, we are at the cusp of great transformation. There has never been a moment in history that has been more significant than this in the last 1,000 years. We are having the closest conjunction, 800 years. We are having the closest conjunction since 1206, and hence, the responsibilities we have as human beings are higher than ever, and we have to understand several things about this time frame. Just like the previous great conjunctions, we are going to see important events that are going to take place in the world. We are going to see some very good innovations. At the same time, we're going to see a counterculture, a counter-revolution. We are going to see some greed in people to to exploit the situations of humanity during this time frame. We are going to see opportunity, we're going to see greed, we're going to see fear, and all of this at an unprecedented scale. As it was told by someone, there are decades when nothing happens. A wise person once said, but there are weeks when decades happen. So that's the time frame we are in at the moment, and the most important thing I've come to tell you all today and share with you, of course, this is quite debatable, but the next 20 years, starting 2020 until 2040, will impact the world for the next 400 years, minimum. Whatever we do in the next 20 years as human beings together is going to impact the world in a very strong way for the next 400 years. Hence, we have to be extra careful as human beings while taking advantage of the opportunities and inventing for, the well-being of society. We also need to be aware of the risks that are going to take place, because this is not going to be some reversible event that's just going to come and go away very quickly. This is something that's going to impact us for at least 4 centuries. And we are seeing it every single day. So what is next? We have to understand that in the next 20 years, there are going to be at least 4 or 5 different technologies. Currently, we know about artificial intelligence, and probably a lot of people know about quantum computing. And we also know about blockchain. And of course, we are all here to discuss blockchain for the next 3 days. So these are going to be the 3 major technologies. But alongside, we're going to see a few ideologies that will also come about. Today, we're talking about plurality here in the next 2 or 3 days. That's a very interesting ideology that's going to help the world if we really put it in place and think about it in a logical and helpful manner. But there's also going to be capitalism of human thought in the next 20 years. There are going to be corporations which try to capitalize on our information, on our thoughts, and there are going to be corporations that are going to try to control our thoughts further and further in the next 20 years in a very strong and serious manner. And hence, humans have to be careful. And I believe that the revolution that's coming about in terms of blockchain and everything is actually to reduce the powers, concentration of power in singular places, and to distribute it to society, so society is a more happier and a more wonderful place. Of course, it's a very long subject, but to cut it short today, I'd like to say that we are at the beginning of a new era, and we need to be more careful and well-guided human beings at this point of time. So now coming to, of course, the value cycles in technology. We often talk about bubbles, but what happens is that in the present system that we're following in terms of analysis, we're not able to figure out when a bubble begins and when it ends. But astrology can give us a guideline on how to identify where bubbles can begin in terms of economic bubbles or value bubbles and where they can end, especially in technologies wherein the difference, so the time difference between initial invention and valuation and adoption, if there is a longer time gap between these 3 cycles in any business or in any invention or any technology, there is a stronger likelihood of a bubble forming. And often, these bubbles coincide with astrological cycles. Whenever Jupiter and Saturn come together, we see this mass, we just see people going mad after something. It could be anything. It could be a valid thing. It could be an invalid thing. Last time we saw it was the tulip mania, which all came down in 1637. We saw people going mad after just a flower, a simple flower. So similarly, people have gone mad after a few things in this present time frame, and we need to recognize that as well. But now, what I believe is going to happen in the next 20 years is that, first of all, we're going to see at least 1 or 2 more bubbles. And after 2030, we'll see real market maturation in these technologies. And by 2040, approximately, we will see the next great conjunction, which is the closest in 1,200 years. And 2040 will be the most important year for technology after this. So we are going to see another new invention that's going to come about in 2040. We're going to see space travel that will become accessible to a lot of people compared to what it is now. We're going to see blockchain transforming almost every area of human development and the industrialized economies. And we are also going to see artificial intelligence changing almost everyone's life as it is already doing today. On the negative side, we are likely to see certain entities trying to control these technologies for their own benefit, and at the expense of democracy, of true democracy. And we're going to see these negative things also happening very quickly in the next few years. And here we have all of you who are the forefront of digital technology, and it is in your hands and our hands together as the youth to solve this and to change this and make the world a better place and invent technology and use technology for the benefit of society rather than to harm society as much as possible. So I'd like to just, because we're running out of time, I'd like to end this presentation with a prayer from the Vedas, the most ancient philosophical textbooks ever known to humanity. And the prayer is very simple. I'd like to first recite it in Sanskrit. Om tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti 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 asatoma sadgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. The Vedic prayer is, O Supreme, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from untruth to truth, and lead us from non-existence to existence. The time when we realize our true purpose in life is when we actually exist. Till then, we're just running around material nature constantly. So it's better to move from darkness to light and help the world as much as possible. So let there be peace, peace, and peace. Thank you all for listening today. Jai Shri Krishna.